I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're here today to talk about some of the seismic shifts in technology taking place in government, and also how the need for modern IT skills are prompting a sizable portion of federal agencies to bring in managed service providers, or MSPs, to advance their IT needs. In fact, a new survey of federal agency IT decision makers conducted by FedScoop and underwritten by GDIT found that 2 in 3 federal respondents say their agency is currently using, planning to use, or considering retaining an MSP to support their IT work. Here to talk about that and the evolving need for MSPs in government is Rob Smallwood, Vice President, Digital Modernization and Enterprise IT at General Dynamics Information Technology. Rob, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Wyatt. Happy to be here.
Well, one of the things that we learned in our recent FedScoop survey is that there are a number of forces motivating agencies to consider and turn to managed service providers. Cost efficiency ranked at the top of the list, but there are a number of other factors as well. What are you seeing in your experience and based on some of the survey findings?
Well, I think one area, and it's related to the cost, is the predictability, right? Having a predictable pricing model that they can count on year in, year out, and it's consistent, right? Our federal customers, they have varying budgets from year to year, and having a predictable cost model helps them budget within that dynamic budgeting system that they have to work within. I think another kind of a no-brainer is that, they want their folks to be focused more on the mission needs, right? A lot of our customers aren't in the business of IT. So freeing those folks up to do more of the mission of the agency seems to be a real push for moving to managed services, because it allows those people that may have been in the IT role or an IT oversight role to move on and do more of the mission specific type work, that's really going to benefit the agency from that perspective. And I think the other one that was of interest to me, and it's related to, they highlighted things like they're looking to leverage AI and ML expertise, right? But it comes back to having some market knowledge or expertise that they just don't have on the ground on that program, whether it's because they don't want to invest in the training because it's so far from what their mission needs are, or it's so it flexes because of whatever's going on at that moment. You may not need a specific skill for 4 years or whatever, right? So working with an MSP, we can bring in the specialized skills as needed on the program. Again, kind of maximizing the cost efficiency as well. So you don't have somebody sitting there for the entire contract when you can mix and match skills more readily working with a managed service provider.
That makes a lot of sense. What else stood out to you in the study based on this survey of federal IT decision makers?
Well, like I kind of referenced a minute ago, the whole having the niche skills like AI, ML, that really made us think as a MSP. I think we understood the cost predictability, and we understood efficiencies, but the idea of bringing the right skills at the right time seemed to resonate with us. The other thing I would say is a lot of the agencies, they wanted something in the middle, right? So as GDIT, we have a prescriptive definition of what managed services are, right? To truly benefit fully from the managed service, you're in this contractor-owned, contractor-operated model. Contractor takes on all the risk, but there seems to be a large appetite for something in the middle, right? So when I look at that, I look at it as there's a journey that we need to bring our customers on, right? They're not ready to jump in with both feet into a fully managed service program because they have certain concerns maybe, or they're not sure exactly how it works within their procurement models, whatever the factor is, but they seem to want to go in somewhat of a slower transition from where they are today to get to that fully managed service in the future. And it's up to the MSP to make sure that we level set. Okay, you want something in the middle, but this is this is a trade-off for not going all the way to a fully managed service, because there are trade-offs. For example, the risk piece that I mentioned a moment ago.
Well, what would you say that agencies sometimes miss or misunderstand in transitioning from a traditional owned and operated IT model to more of a managed IT services model?
When I think about that, I think one of the biggest ones is they feel they're going to lose control of the program. When you have a staff aug model, you have your staff there, they're overseeing everything that goes on day in, day out. They have this feeling like if they go to an MSP, they're going to lose that control. It's going to go off the rails, and their performance and their users are going to be subject to less than optimal performance, and that's simply not true. And part of that comes back to really looking at what measures and what outcomes the agency wants to achieve or has to achieve in order to achieve mission objectives and meet user requirements. And that gets down to looking at the outcome-based measures that we work with our customers on to really define. It's not about server uptime 99.99% of the time. Why? Because maybe you have redundancies built into that architecture where, okay, you might have the server go down for some hardware reason, but you still have the application or capability up and running for the users to access because you've built the necessary redundancies in place because that application has significant business impact, and we want to make sure that it's designed in order to cancel out some of those single points of failure. So I think that seems to be one of the harder aspects working with our customers, is really thinking about what are those outcomes that they want to achieve. And I understand, coming from a technical background, it's really hard to get out of the mindset of CPUs and memory and all those very technical terms. But at the end of the day, what our customers really need to focus on is what are they trying to achieve and what are they trying to provide to the end users. And I would say, kind of linked to that as well, there's a measure of providing the outcomes, but there's also how you're going to improve those services over time, right? You have, a lot of our programs are 4 or 5 or even longer years out, and it's not, and especially in today's world, it's not realistic to think that you're going to be providing that capability exactly the same way you did at year 1 as you are going to provide it on year 5, because technology is just transforming. Every day there's something new coming out. There's a new vendor out there thinking about traditional problems in a totally different way. And, you have to work with an MSP that's going to work and work to bring those best technologies, emergent technologies, best approaches into the solution and allow the agency to benefit from them. Because I think that's the other thing. Agencies, especially from a budgetary perspective, it's very hard for them to budget in modernization activities, right? Because they don't know what's happening. Planning tends to be kind of hit or miss. So moving to an MSP kind of gets them out of that and allows the MSP to take on that responsibility and make sure that things are being kept up to date. We're modifying SLAs over the course of the contract to meet whatever the dynamic mission needs are, and bringing in improvements and innovation when they make sense.
Well, lastly, Rob, where have you seen MSPs making a compelling difference for agencies?
Well, we have a bunch of managed service programs that we actually have owned. We have a large Intel customer, for example, that we've been providing managed services them for the better part of a decade. And that spans all of your traditional enterprise IT type capabilities. And kind of to what I was saying earlier, one of the big things for them when we first went into that, we had like more than 200 different SLAs that we were trying to meet. And many of them weren't really focused on the outcomes that the agency was trying to achieve. And we've gotten that down to about 60 or so the last time I checked SLAs that we're actually working towards, and they're outcome based. The other piece of that was we were able to take an 80% deficient environment where they were kind of behind on technology and get that up to current. So just from a stability aspect, when you're able to get things up to more current technologies and get rid of that technical debt in your environment, that alone is a major accomplishment for these folks, because it's technical debt is one way that inject instability into the environment. The other kind of really remarkable programs that we have is our VA service desk program. We went in there, they had 13 distinct service desks, and we've consolidated that down to one. We've added things like live chat. We've deployed UiPath to help with some of the RPA and reduce the mean time to resolutions, going from 14 hours down to 30 minutes in some cases. But ultimately driving efficiencies with the VA and helping to drive their mission. I think at the peak of the COVID last year, we were handling over 30,000 calls a week while we were shifting our staff into a fully remote working model. And all of that was done still maintaining in the upper 98 percentile customer satisfaction for that customer. And I think that speaks volumes. We all know how last year was kind of very dynamic and just hit us off guard. But having a team like the team we have up there at VA that was able to manage that transition without sacrificing the support for the user base was really remarkable.
Well, Rob Smallwood, thank you so much for sharing those examples and also your insights on, the evolving role of managed service providers in government.
Thank you, Wyatt.
And we encourage our readers to be sure to download the full report that FedScoop recently published and a link nearby this video. So on behalf of Scoop News Group, thanks for tuning in.